If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another CD collection update for you guys. It's been a little while since the last one, and I'm finally going through the set of albums that I bought while I was on vacation in Tennessee. As you can see, quite a bit right here. Two little stacks of almost 30 that I bought while I was in Tennessee. And actually, funny enough, after this I'm actually working on another stack for the next update. Yeah, I'm still buying stuff, even though I feel like I probably need to hold off for a few weeks and see what happens. But knowing how I am, that's probably not going to happen. But before I get started with showing off what I have, a quick reminder to those watching that I do have a giveaway going on right now on the YouTube channel. Pretty much I am, as of recording this video, which was on Sunday, June 4th, I am 300 subscribers away from 4,000. Once I get to the 4,000 subscriber mark, I will be giving away 6 CDs. And basically, to enter in the giveaway, just go into the description box of this video. There will be a video titled 4,000 subscriber CD giveaway announcement. Click on that video, and then when you're checking that video out, leave a comment in the comment section below of the video, or you can go to my YouTube channel page and the video will be right there on the trailer section. So you can click on that and then leave the comment that way. But the bottom line is, leave a comment in that video, and then once I get to that 4,000 subscriber mark, I'll put all of the commenters' names into a random name picker, and then that will be the way the winner's picked, and whoever wins gets the 6 CDs. So if you want some good stuff, enter the giveaway. But enough rambling about the giveaway. Let's go through everything that I got while I was in Tennessee. Now, I actually found a second record shop in the area. Well, I found it on the way down to Tennessee. It was like in the outskirts of Knoxville. There was a record shop there called Basement Records, and their vinyl selection was pretty massive, but they had a pretty sizable CD rack, and I got probably most of my stuff from that shop. And then I got the rest at the same shop I go to all the time in the Gatlinburg area called the Rhythm Section inside of the Mountain Mall. So if you're in the Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Knoxville area of Tennessee, hit up those two places, Basement Records in South Knoxville and the Rhythm Section inside of the Mountain Mall in Gatlinburg. But without further ado, kicking things off, we have Acid Baths, Pagan Terrorism Tactics. So yeah, this was the second and last album from these New Orleans sludge legends that, of course, Sammy Duet from Goat Whore and Crowbar, this was his band. And yeah, Acid Bath, I mean, what more can you say about a band like Acid Bath, who really kind of, along with Crowbar and I Hate God, paved the way for a lot of the New Orleans bands playing the more sludgy kind of stuff. And yeah, this was the second and last one. I already had their debut. I forget what it's called, but it's up there. But yeah, I got both of the Acid Bath albums. I still need to give them both a full-on listen. And who knows, maybe retro review possibilities down the pike if I can remember, even though I rarely, if at all, do retro reviews anymore. But this could be one for that down the road. But yeah, Acid Bath. Next up is a band that a lot of people are going to be shocked I didn't have an album of theirs in the collection already, and that is Aerosmith, and I got their self-titled debut, Aerosmith. This was 1973, the classic debut from this Boston hard rock band that honestly doesn't get enough credit for kind of paving the way a little bit for a lot of American heavy metal bands, because a lot of the riff work in the 70s era Aerosmith was highly influential to many American metal bands that followed. Even some thrash bands like ask Metallica and Metal Church, they'll tell you that Aerosmith was a huge inspiration. But yeah, this album's definitely one of the odd ones out when it comes down to the 70s catalog. Like, when you think of Aerosmith in the 70s, you think of principally two albums, Toys in the Attic and Rocks, where some of the bigger hits came out on Toys in the Attic, but then you get into the heavier, edgier side of their sound with Rocks. But this was a good foundation album. Of course, the main two songs everybody knows from this album are Mamakin and most especially Dream On, and it's still such an iconic jammin' song, kind of epic, almost like a precursor to like Bohemian Rhapsody in some degree. But yeah, some good old-fashioned Aerosmith, finally in the collection. As far as if I'm going to get any more, I'm probably mainly going to get the 70s catalog, so I need to get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, Rocks, Draw the Line, and Night in the Ruts, because I think that 70s era, very underappreciated. But yeah, the self-titled debut from Aerosmith. Next up, we got another debut, and that is Amon Amarth with Once Sent from the Golden Hall, the debut album from the Viking-themed melodic death metal legends out of Sweden. And yeah, this was their debut in 1998, and I think it's the only one with legendary drummer Martin Lopez in the band, and I think pretty much not long after this album came out was when Martin, or he might have been in Opeth already, but he did the drums for this album. And of course, Amon Amarth, everybody should know about Amon Amarth by this point. I mean, they're great Viking anthems, great stories to be told, heavy double-time grooves, some thrashy sections. Basically like a mix of the Gothenburg sound and maybe a little bit of Bolt Thrower when it comes down to the double-time grooves. But yeah, Amon Amarth, and this is where it all started. I do plan to at some point get all of the Amon Amarth albums. I do have a couple of bands I'm working on getting all of the main albums from right now that you'll more than likely see in the next update. But yeah, Amon Amarth, slowly but surely. So far, this is only my second Amon Amarth album I got in the collection, but more will be coming in the future. But yeah. Next up, we got Amorphous with Circle. So yeah, this is, I believe, I want to say the 5th or 6th Amorphous album that I have in the collection. Like, if I recall, actually, let me look. I have the first two albums, the Carillion Isthmus / the Privilege of Evil EP, and the Tales from the Thousand Lakes, and as well as their last two albums, which I believe were Queen of Time and Halo. Yeah, I was correct. But yeah, this album came out in 2013, so this, I think they had something Red Cloud after this in 2015, so if I were to get that, I'd have the last 4 Amorphous albums. But yeah, I mean, with Amorphous, another band, what more can you say about them? One of the most consistent bands of all time. I mean, starting out more of that melodic death metal / death doom sound, and then morphing into being more progressive metal, or even still keeping some melodic death metal in there, a little bit folky at times, little bits of hard rock thrown into the mix. But, I mean, Amorphous, no matter what sound they go for, it sounds amazing every time. After all, I had their last album, Halo, near the top 10 in my Album of the Year list last year, because I thought it was such a killer album. But yeah, Circle, this one I do need to listen to at some point, but seeing through these song titles, yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun listen no matter what. But yeah, Amorphous. Next up, we get into Behemoth with Satanica. So this is the 4th overall studio full-length from these Polish legends, after all, Nurgle, Inferno, and company, and this was 1999 when this came out. I got the reissue on Dwell Records from 2005, I believe. Yeah, 2005. But yeah, this was the second album of the current blackened death metal era that they've been in since Pandemonic Incantations in 1998, and actually currently working on trying to get all of the blackened death era Behemoth albums. Spoiler alert, you're going to see a lot of them in the next update for damn sure. But yeah, with this one, yeah, definitely kind of building on the foundation laid by Pandemonic Incantations, but maybe going even further into the death metal side of things, and just all out visceral and brutal and evil. Basically everything you love about this era of Behemoth. But yeah, Satanica. More blackened death glory, we have Belphegor's Lucifer Incestus. So this was 2003 when this album came out, and of course, similar to Behemoth, one of the big forerunners of modern blackened death metal. Not my favorite blackened death metal band, but this album certainly packs a ton of brutality. I remember getting into the song The Goat Christ on like a YouTube compilation, and I just thought, man, this is some of the most brutal, evil, blackened death metal I'd ever heard. And the album does live up to all that, and perhaps then some. I mean, the vocals going from like low growls to the high black metal scream. Great mix of like death metal thrashy bits and the black metal tremolos and blasts. Basically balancing everything out pretty damn well on this album. But yeah, Belphegor, Lucifer Incestus. And yeah, I am sick of my squealing stool just like everybody else. Anyways, next up, Decapitated Cancer Culture. The latest studio offering from this Polish tech death band. And this one, I actually reviewed this when it came out, and it was in my top 50 album of the year list. I think it was in like the 40 range. But it's a great album, and after all, I feel this is like a proper return to form almost for Decapitated. Like, a lot less of the groove metal influence and getting back to more technical death metal. Like songs like the title track, Just a Cigarette, No Cure, Last Supper especially. Like, that is such a barn burner of a song. But yeah, this album, like, there's still the groove elements, but they're just peppered in there. This is mostly just straight up tech death awesomeness. So, like I said, it's nice to hear this band going back to their roots a little bit more and getting back to where they were at their best. Granted, there's not going to be an album that tops the first two in my mind unless they somehow pull it off. But yeah, Cancer Culture, Decapitated. Next up, we get into more classics. We have Deep Purple Fireball. So yeah, I'm kind of been slowly worked my way into getting all of the classic Mark II lineup albums from Deep Purple, and I think I got all of the essential ones like In Rock, Fireball, Machine Head, and Perfect Strangers. Now, debatably, if I don't know if I'm going to get any other Deep Purple albums. Maybe I might get the first couple from the Mark III era when David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes came into the band. But I was really trying to get all of the classic Mark II lineup stuff with Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, and of course Ritchie Blackmore, Ian Pace, and I think that's everybody. And John Lord. How could I forget the late great John Lord? But yeah, Fireball, this one, very, very odd in comparison to In Rock and even Machine Head. Like, it's a little bit trippier. After all, it kind of looks more like a psychedelic album, if anything else. But yeah, Deep Purple. All-time greats. Alright, next up we have a pair here from Dream Theater. I'm also trying to eventually slowly work my way to get all the Dream Theater stuff. But I have here Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, and their last album, A View from the Top of the World. Two very different albums, whereas Metropolis 2, one of the best concept albums of the 90s, and it came out at the tail end of the 90s in 1999, but still, just absolutely fantastic. After all, when you have the song Dance of Eternity on here, and it's like super chaotic and wild, you know you're in for something quite special on here. But yeah, overall, top to bottom, this is a classic prog metal album. Then with A View from the Top of the World, I did review this one when it came out, and this was a hell of an album. And I love that it's a lot heavier than this in terms of the guitar tone. Granted, there is little hints of that like Genty 8-string guitar sound, but it's not used that much. And also, like, with having Andy Sneap do the mix of this album, you know we are going to get a hell of a sounding album. Hell, the title track, over 20 minutes of just masterful songwriting. But yeah, I reviewed this one. I believe it made my top 20 in 2021. I believe so. If not, that should have been up there. But yeah, two vastly different Dream Theater albums. But of course, Dream Theater, one of the legends of prog metal. What more can you say? Speaking of prog mastery, we have Enslaved Heimdall, the latest album from these Norwegian prog black metal titans. Not going to go too much into this. If you want to know my full opinion about it, check out my review. It's on the channel. This, I will say, again, a front runner possibly for Album of the Year. I don't know, there's quite a few albums that are in that spot, like this, Neobliviscaris, Hellripper, Enforced. Like, there's quite a few that could battle it out for best album of 2023 so far. But yeah, this is a brilliant album, much like most of Enslaved's catalog, which I need to get more Enslaved. But yeah, Heimdall. Oh yeah, excuse me. Alright, we're almost done with the first half. Next up we get Exhorder, Born the Southern Skies. This was the latest album from this New Orleans groove / thrash metal band. I've been trying so hard to find copies of their first two albums, Slaughter in the Vatican and The Law, because those are timeless albums. But good luck trying to find a legitimate copy at a cheap price and not a fucking bootleg. But yeah, Born the Southern Skies, which I think I reviewed this one when it came out. If I didn't, I feel ashamed. But I'm pretty certain I did review it when it came out, and this was a hell of an album. 2019 was kind of like a hidden year for comebacks, because you had this and Nocturnus, AD, with albums that just kicked ass for different reasons. But yeah, this feels like a proper continuation of where they left off on The Law, and even the title track with that great, like, opening acoustic line, really, really excellent. Kyle Thomas's vocals still sound killer. Hopefully we get a new album from these guys. I would love to hear what's next from Exhorder. But yeah, for now we got this one. That's only about 3.5, 4 years old. So yeah. Alright, and then next up we have Exhumed, Death Revenge. So yeah, another band I'm starting to kind of slowly getting everything that they have. I think the only albums I'm missing are the recent two and All Guts, No Glory. I believe that's the name of the album. I don't plan on getting the Garage Days Regurgitated covers thing, because that was So yeah, just 3 more albums left to complete the Exhumed catalog. But yeah, with Death Revenge, I believe this was a concept album. If not, tell me. But I didn't check this out when it came out in 2017, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I will get to it, because you never know, one of these days I'm going to have to rank all of the Exhumed albums, and that's going to be kind of a daunting task. But yeah, Death Revenge, Exhumed. Alright, and now we're finally into the second stack, and next up we have Gojira's Terra Incognita, the debut album from this French progressive groovy death metal band. And yeah, this was on Listenable Records, and in 2001, so this is 22 years old. And then of course, actually a little bit of an announcement for you guys. The day after my birthday, on August 9th, I'm going to be going to Newport, Kentucky, which is across the river from Cincinnati, to go see Gojira and Mastodon live. And that's going to be an amazing time, so I cannot wait. Just 2 more months, and that's going to be a fun experience. But yeah, Terra Incognita, this is an album that definitely, you could say it was like Humble Beginnings, but maybe not so much, because pretty much you already got what Gojira was going to be all about on this album, with like triplet chugs here and there, some death metal parts, some thrash elements, prog, of course. I actually haven't really listened to much from this album. I need to, especially to get prepared for when I do go see Gojira, but eventually I'm going to get all the Gojira albums. This is only the 4th one I have in the collection. I think the only ones I'm missing are the last 2 and The Way of All Flesh, which I feel ashamed that I don't have The Way of All Flesh, but I'll get it eventually. But yeah, Terra Incognita. Next up, another one that came out last year, and I was not expecting to see this at a record shop in Tennessee, but Hatriot's The Veil of Shadows. I actually did review this one last year when it came out. This is some Bay Area death thrash, fronted by my man Cody Sousa, who's the son of Steve Sousa from Exodus. Cody, actually a solid friend of mine. We talk a lot on Twitch and a little bit on Instagram. Great bassist and a hell of a wild vocalist. Like, he kind of carries a little bit of the legacy of his father, but throws in his death roars, and he's got a solid death roar. But yeah, his like unwieldy vocals are really fucking fun on here. And yeah, musically, this is some awesome death thrash. So yeah, if you are a fan of Exodus, you might dig a lot of stuff on this album, especially because it's family ties. But yeah, Hatred. Next up, we have Helloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 Expanded Edition. So yeah, the classic 3rd album from the pioneers of power metal in Germany. And not like the typical power metal that you hear nowadays out of Germany. This is more speed metal inspired, and like Iron Maiden on speed, essentially, is what you would call 80s Helloween. But especially with the Keeper albums, that's when they got more epic and more bombastic and more fantastical. Whereas the debut album was still very much a speed metal album, but then you get to the Keeper albums, and everything gets pushed even further. Also helps that Michael Kiske is on vocals, and he's an amazing vocalist. And of course, with this, you have your classics like the title track, Eagle Fly Free, especially I Want Out, one of the biggest hits, you could say, for power metal. But it's such a great album, great continuation of Part 1. Hard for me to say which one I prefer, Part 1 or Part 2. I'd have to listen to them both back to back to really make a judgment on that. But yeah, Helloween, baby. Next up, actually the next 2, we're getting into some classic Swedish melodeath. Next, Hypocrisy, Abducted. Finally got a full-length Hypocrisy album in my collection. I have their Inferior Devotees EP. That was a gift from It's Mr. Scott to me, which, if you're watching, Scott, thank you again for that. But I was really, really wanting to get this one, Abducted, because I personally think this is the best Hypocrisy album, top to bottom. After all, it's the most well-known, especially for the song Roswell 47. That is such a fantastic song. But the title track, brutal as hell, but still maintaining melodic hooks in here. And that's the kind of melodeath that I like, where it's still brutal, but has some cool, like, somber melodies, or even fantastical melodies. And Hypocrisy, I would say neck and neck with a band like Edge of Sanity and At the Gates, I think does the Gothenburg sound very, very well. But yeah, Hypocrisy, Abducted. And then next up, we get In Flames with Clayman. Finally got some In Flames in the collection. And primarily, if I'm going to get more In Flames, I'm just going to go from Clayman on back. Like back to Lunar Strain. Because that's really the only great In Flames stuff. I might give A Route to Remain because that's kind of a transition album, but still really good. But yeah, I mean, the song that got me hooked on checking out anything In Flames was the song Only for the Weak. I still think that's a hell of a melodeath song. Very groove-laden, but still catchy, fun, great stuff. But yeah, back when In Flames was good, in 2000. Next up, another one I was shocked I didn't have in the collection, and that is Megadeth, The System Has Failed. So yeah, this was the kind of comeback album for Megadeth, especially after the band was temporarily disbanded in 2002 due to Dave Mustaine's arm injury on his fretting hand, and he had to learn how to play guitar again, and this was the first output he had after recovering. But I believe I had this ranked somewhere in the middle of the Megadeth ranking. I think this is a really good comeback. Like songs like Blackmail the Universe, Kick the Chair, even the more odd tracks like The Scorpion and let's see, Mice and Men. I think those are fun, catchy songs. Even though this feels like more of a Dave Mustaine solo album, even if it's under the Megadeth moniker, it's still a welcomed addition to the catalog. Back in the day, I remember I heard that song on Duck Dodgers, which is still a weird crossover looking back. But yeah, some really cool stuff on here. So yeah, Megadeth. Next up, we have Rotting Christ, The Heretics. This was the last album released so far from the Greek black metal, black and death metal legends. And yeah, I think I reviewed this one too when it came out in 2019. This was pretty high on my album of the year list, and it's still great. After all, tracks like Heaven, Hell, and Fire, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Fire, God, and Fear, The New Messiah, The Raven is still one of the catchiest Rotting Christ songs you'll ever hear. I'm hoping we get a new album from them this year, because it's been I think it's been 4 years now, officially, since this came out, so I would love to hear what these guys have in store next. Now we got another pair, and that is Sacred Reich. We have the EP Surf Nicaragua and the second album, The American Way. Sacred Reich, such an underrated thrash band out of the Arizona scene, along with Flotsam and Jetsam and Atrophy. But out of those three bands, I think I like Sacred Reich the most, primarily for the debut album, Ignorance. That is such a brutal onslaught of thrash. And then here with the Surf Nicaragua EP, you got a few tracks, including a pretty solid cover of Black Sabbath War Pigs. But yeah, for an EP, pretty solid. Then with The American Way, this was kind of blending thrash and maybe a little bit of speed metal in here. But yeah, songs like the title track, Who's to Blame, Crimes Against Humanity is such a brutally honest song. And Phil Ryan just sounds super pissed off on that song. Then again, he sounds like he's always pissed off, even though I've heard interviews of him. He seems like a really cool, calm, soft-spoken guy. But yeah, Sacred Reich. We're almost done. Next up, we have Sepultura Quadra, the latest studio offering from the Brazilian legends. And I remember checking this out in 2020, and I was thoroughly impressed with the variation of songwriting, and I still think the best Derek Green album, even though some people might say, well, Machine Messiah would be in the running for it too. I'm still hesitant about getting really many of the Derek Green era albums, just because, to me, Sepultura is always Max Cavalera. That's just me. I'm one of those people who's like, I'm all about Max Cavalera. But I will admit the last two of the Derek Green era are very fucking good. Particularly this one. But yeah, Quadra. Next up, we have Slayer Divine Intervention. 1994, the follow-up to Seasons in the Abyss, and even though I had this one ranked a little lower, the songs are good on here, like Killing Fields, Fictional Reality, Ditto Head, the title track, Circle of Beliefs, 213, Mind Control. Like, I don't think there's a bad song on the album. My main issue is the production. Like, the guitars sound really thin on here. The drums sound fantastic. Like, I actually really like the drum sound. It's just the mix was off and the guitar tone was super thin. And that was my main issue with it. But the songs, really fucking good. So yeah, might get a couple other of the good Slayer albums like World Painted Blood and Christ Illusion at some point. But yeah. Few more to go. Next up we have Soulfly Totem. This came out last year, and I was super impressed by this album. This was the first Soulfly full-length I ever heard in its entirety. Thank God I did, because this is thrashy, it's brutal, so fun to listen to. And then, of course, Max thanking my buddies at the Thralls of Metal in the liner notes. Like, let me find it. Max, thanks. I know it's in here somewhere. Thralls of Metal, where are you? Yep, I found it. It's towards the end. Yeah, Thralls of Metal, Metalheads Unite. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, that's really cool that Max would go out of his way to thank my buddies, and now buddies of his. But yeah, the album itself, fantastic. Absolutely loved it last year. Definitely need to listen to it again. Next up, we have Toxic Holocaust, Chemistry of Consciousness. Yeah, I've been needing to get some more Toxic Holocaust in the collection, but yeah, whenever you think of Toxic Holocaust, it's black and thrash with a little bit of punk thrown into the mix. But yeah, Chemistry of Consciousness, I definitely think has a little bit more of that like punky speed metal vibe to it, but it's still very raw, very evil sounding, but a fuck ton of fun. So yeah, Chemistry of Consciousness. And then finally, we have Tribulation, where Gloom Becomes Sound. I believe I did review this one when it came out in 2021, and still I love this album. In Remembrance, one of the catchiest songs of the past 5 years for me, and I still love it. I think I gave this one a 9.5 out of 10 when it came out, and it was pretty highly ranked on my year-end list in 2021. I'd have to go back to those videos and see where I did rank it, but yeah, still holds up 2 years later. And that, ladies and gentlemen, knocks out another collection update. Like I said, I am actually currently working on another stack. I've been ordering a bunch of stuff online, trying to complete a couple of bands' discographies, or at least a section of the discography that I like. And yeah, big things coming up. Not only that, but I'm going to my first wrestling show in 6 years here in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. WWE house show in Cincinnati, and then of course August 9th, the day after I turn 29, I'm going to see Gojira and Mastodon live, and I can't wait for both of these things. It's going to be awesome. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this update. What was your favorite album out of this monstrosity of an episode? But until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.